Greetings from Brood Farm. Wanted to cover a couple of topics. This video is going to go over just our high tunnel in general here on the farm, as well as strawberry production. And just a disclaimer up front, I'm by no means an expert in growing strawberries, but we've been doing it for a few years. And we are certified naturally grown, so all of the standards that we follow are like an organic standard. So that kind of makes it a little bit more challenging, and so I'll go over a little bit of that too. So just as a little bit of background, we are standing in our high tunnel. It is 30 by 96 feet, which is a pretty good sized high tunnel. You'll see on the side it has the drop sides. That's operated by a crank. So that allows me to kind of regulate temperature. So overnight tonight, we are supposed to drop below freezing. This is November 1st. We're supposed to drop below freezing. Should not be a problem for the strawberries at all. They're pretty frost protected in here under this plastic sheeting. But I don't want to risk any of them going dormant yet because they're still in the process of putting down their roots. And that would be the fear right now. So what I've got going is just kind of a half. I've got the sides halfway up, which is just gonna help it stay a little bit warmer in here, but it won't get so hot that it's like stifling, because that's what can happen on a sunny day, even if it's cold outside the tunnel. So that's kind of how the sides work. The idea behind a high tunnel, if you're unfamiliar, is season extension. So you can grow things for longer into the fall, winter, or be harvesting earlier in the spring than your competitors or folks that are just growing outside. So these strawberries were planted in here on September the 18th as tiny little plug plants, so 2, maybe 3 leaves a piece, and a pretty good root ball on the plants that we got this year. So I'm really pleased so far with what the plants look like on November 1st. They are putting down a lot of roots, and the crowns are really developing well like you want them to in the fall. So I'll go over what it is that we do to care for the plants year-round, how we fertilize, irrigate, fight the pests that we contend with, and just kind of give an overview of strawberry production here on Brood Farm. In our high tunnel this year, I've got 2 different varieties planted. These over here are Camarosas. This is our first year to grow Camarosas. So I can't really speak yet to how I like this variety. What I have noticed so far about them is that they are beginning to flower. So in the fall, you really don't want your strawberry plants to flower. They're gonna put energy resources into producing that fruit, and that's really not the goal in the fall. So I would come down through here and take these little blooms and just pick them off. The Camarosas have been producing the flowers, the other variety has not. I have noted though that the Camarosas have not been putting off runners. That the Camino Reals are the ones that have been doing that. So these are our Camino Reals over here in this row, and you see all these little offshoots here. These are the plant just trying to make a new plant. And when they're super healthy in the fall, like these plants are, that's what they're gonna do. So I come through and I just get rid of all these extra runners because that's just sucking energy from my plant. And I want it to use everything it's got to grow those deep roots and develop the crown right now. That's what this time of year is for. So pre-planting, we've got to be sure that our beds are ready to receive our plants. And the things that we do here, we start with a soil test to just see where our levels are in the soil that we're going to be planting in. This year, our soil test came back really pretty good, and the only amendment we needed was a little bit of compost just to kind of boost fertility and organic matter in the soil. And so we came in and added some compost. We use raised beds. So this helps strawberries in a couple of ways. It helps the beds to drain so they're not sitting with wet feet. The roots aren't just soaked all the time. And then also it kind of aids in harvest because the berries will grow down kind of off the side and kind of hang down the side of the row, and they're just easier to pick that way. We do use this commercial grade landscape fabric. In the past we have used just a plastic, but I really prefer these because it's reusable and we can use the same ones year after year. So we have holes in here. They are spaced out kind of, you know, back and forth, approximately 1 foot apart from plant to plant. And we have used a tin can and a little butane torch to burn these perfectly circular holes into the landscape fabric. And that was done, you know, prior to bringing them in here, but you could do it whichever way, I suppose. And it just burns a nice little hole so that you have the perfect little spot to put your plants down in when you get them in. Here in the high tunnel, we have 2 different irrigation systems set up. So the first is a very portable overhead sprinkler system, which you can see right here. This is one of the overhead sprinklers, and there are 6 of them spaced throughout, and they are able to reach everything here in the tunnel. So that is very portable. I can pull that out. We actually only use those for about the first week that the plants are in the ground. In mid-September, when we planted, it was still very hot, as it typically is that time of year in Arkansas, and the plants, you know, are under a lot of stress from the transplant. So you cool them with the overhead sprinkler, and you know, a certain number of hours per day, and it you gradually decrease the number of hours per day until they're pretty established and start to put on some new leaves that let you know that they are taking root. Really, after that first week, we don't use the overhead sprinklers at all. So this is just a place we're storing them at this point. When it comes harvest time, we'll definitely be sure to get these out just so they're not in the way while we're traveling the rows to harvest. So our primary method of irrigation that we use in here is a drip system. So like here's our header line that runs through, and then each one connects to a drip tape. The one with the blue line on it is the drip line. It has little emitters spaced every 12 inches. And we just actually have 1 per row. So that line right there runs all the way down that row, down the middle, and then there's the plants on either side. I like that our emitters have the valve, so if I feel like one of my rows is getting a little more damp than the others, I can come in and turn it off and allow the other ones to go ahead and water. So all of this header line system is connected to our hose bib assembly. So we just have a hose that runs in from outside in right up here, and then comes in filter. These are, you know, pressure gauges, pressure reducer, comes through over here to our header line. This contraption here is called a fertigator. So what this allows us to do is to fertilize through the drip irrigation system. This is the cheapest of these that I've been able to find, and it functions really well. It comes from, I think the brand name is Strong Injector. Yeah, Strong Injectors. So we use, to fertilize, a fish emulsion. This is actually the bottle that I'm using right now. So, like I mentioned, we are certified naturally grown, which means that all of our products that we use on our plants have to be OMRI listed. So, it tells you right here, OMRI listed. This is what I use to fertilize throughout the fall. So, once a week, I run the water for a pretty good amount of time. Like 6 hours. Approximately. I come and check it and just be sure we're not getting too damp, but it's just a good soaking, and that's it.
not any more than that. One of the benefits of growing under the high tunnel is the ability to control the irrigation, which is great for strawberries because they really like that once a week good soaking, and then they just kind of sit and dry and grow throughout the rest of the week. But also, one of the biggest problems you combat in strawberry growing is fungus. And the fungus is spread from leaf to leaf contact, and when water hits it, that causes, the spread as it bounces off, when you get rain. So in here, watering through the drip irrigation means that we don't have to overhead water, we don't have to rely on rain, and therefore the spread of fungus is greatly inhibited, which is really nice. One of the benefits of being able to grow inside the high tunnel. Another thing that we do in the fall for our strawberry plants is keep on top of the fungus. So I've already mentioned that's a big issue for strawberries, and especially when you're growing in a high tunnel like we are, it's very important to keep the fungus under control, because I want to be able to grow in this same soil in this same location again next year. If you're growing outside, you would very often move to a new location if you got a fungus that was soil borne and didn't want it to reinfect the next year's plantings. Here we don't really have that option, so it's very important to stay on top of it. So in the fall, before your plants go dormant and while they're putting down their roots and growing, it's important to stay on top of the fungicide. And of course, because we're certified naturally grown, we're kind of limited as to what we can use. But my favorite product so far that we've used has been the Serenade disease concentrate. So it fights your powdery mildew, but the main thing that we deal with in here is not the powdery mildew, it's the gray mold. And of course, you're going to check and be sure it's OMRI listed, so that it can be used in organic growing. This is just applied with a backpack sprayer. And right now I'm actually doing this about every 14 days, which seems pretty frequent, but last year we grew outside and had a big issue with fungus, and I just don't want that to be a problem again this year. So it's not harmful to the plants to spray them that frequently, and a lot of commercial production even spray them more regularly than that. So that is what we do in terms of taking care of the fungus. In terms of preventing insect damage, the biggest key to preventing insect damage is just to have a strong, healthy plant, because the plant itself will fight off those insects, if it has the strength to do so. But aside from that, should we have pests that really seem to be causing an issue, my go-to, and really not just for strawberries, but kind of farm-wide, should we have to use a spray, is the Pyganic. This is what it looks like. Of course, we're double checking that we're OMRI certified, and that product is very expensive, so it is a last resort, but it does treat a lot of different insects, and so it's just kind of an easy one for us to have here on the farm and reach for in almost all circumstances. A couple of years ago, we did have an issue with the strawberries with slugs and snails, so we grabbed an OMRI listed like bait pellet and just kind of cast those out in here, and that took really quick care of that issue. But that was in the spring. You're not going to see that in the fall as much, because they prey on the berries themselves, so they can be really detrimental if you don't jump on them.
So as I'm going over all the different things that we do in the fall with the strawberries, it kind of sounds like a lot of things as I'm listing them all out one after the other, with the fertilizing and irrigating and fungicide and all of that, but it really is not that much. It takes maybe 20 minutes to use the backpack sprayer and spray the whole high tunnel. Irrigation is just a matter of kind of turning it on, turning it off. It's really not that much work, but all of that is, you get paid back in the spring. So we do all of that basically through around Thanksgiving, typically. And at that point, you'll start to see that the leaves will turn, the plants go dormant and your leaves are going to change color. So they become a really pretty red. It's gorgeous in here, kind of a purpley red. And that lets you know that the plant has gone dormant for the winter time. And at that point, you quit watering. So no more irrigation. Really, the only thing we need to do in the winter is just be sure that we don't have extended cold snaps that are like below 20 degrees. Because we're in the high tunnel, we're extra protected. And if that were to happen, you know, I would raise my sides and be sure that I'm maximizing the heat coming from the sun, and that we don't have any crown damage because of severe cold. The only other issue that we might have would be extreme snow load on the tunnel itself if we were to get a really big snow. So we have feared that before, and come in here with some like heaters to just keep the ambient air warm enough that it would melt off as the snow hit the top rather than accumulate. But it really didn't turn out to be a big snow, so it was unneeded anyway. Anyway, so in the winter, really nothing. I mean, I might check in periodically to be sure that there's not some insect damage that's taking place, but really they just kind of sit. And then in the spring, and it's earlier than you think, so I'm gonna say late February sometimes, early March, you'll start to see new growth. At that point, we come in and we kind of clean the rows. So you'll have some of those reddish leaves will kind of died off, and then you'll have new green growth. And I'll come in and clear away any debris because, you know, insects are gonna wanna live in that. So we do kind of a cleaning at that point, and then you water. And I don't really hit them with as much fertilizer in the spring. I think last year we didn't fertilize at all in the spring. They've done all their root growth in the fall. So now you're just gonna reap the benefit. And you'll start to then the work is just in the harvest. And it is work. And I call it strawberry back is what I have in April and May. So just from all the squatting and picking, and it's a lot, but it's so worth it. So that is kind of our strawberry production. And like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm just letting you know how it is that we do it here. If you have any questions about the way that we grow our berries or anything that maybe I forgot to cover, feel free to comment or shoot me an email at ashley@broodfarm.com, and I'm happy to help answer any questions that you might have. Thanks, guys.